Salmon of knowledge, it's a 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 salmon of knowledge, Edwin Salmon of Knowledge podcast. Hey, Salmon Skins, welcome to another episode of Edwin Salmon of Knowledge. What does he know? He doesn't know much. He doesn't know things. He doesn't know how to not get frauded by fraudsters online. I stupidly, I was kind of stupid, but then I was kind of smart, I guess. So, you can be two things. You can be both things. You can be, I'm a human being like everyone else, apart from the cyborgs and the lizards online. The online lizards and online cyborgs. Cyborgs don't need a laptop. They just plug into the internet directly into their CPUs. Lizard people, they need a laptop. And also they need a secondary laptop. When that laptop gets real hot, then they lie on top. 'Cause they're lizard people and their blood is cold. Not warm-blooded mammals like you and me. They are lizard people on internet. And they're lying about what is going on with the royal family. Are lizard people. That's why the Queen carries around a handbag. She's got a heater inside that handbag because her blood is very cold. She's cold-blooded, she's a lizard, and that is why. So there's my top 20 single. That used to be a thing when the singles were around. But the singles are no longer around. That's right, the charts are not what they used to be. Although everyone is sharing their Spotify top lists for the year. What have you listened on Spotify? What's the new shit? I thought I was doing pretty good when I had like over 200 new artists discovered. And then in one of my WhatsApp groups with my friends, one of my friends is like 500 new artists discovered. And then another one was saying like, you've listened to 152 genres of music and you've discovered 48 new ones this year alone. And I was thinking, how many genres of music are there? Like, I know there's funk rock. I know there's slow funk. I know there's fast punk. And there's fast funk, and then there's punk funk, and then there's punk rock, slow jam, and then there's quick jam, and then there's rock, and then there's soft rock, hard rock, driving rock, scary rock, gas rock. I just don't know how many. That's all I can think of right now. Pop, obviously. Pop is another one. Pop is a popular one because its name is Pop. So, guys, I think my levels are too high. How are you guys doing? I'm sorry if I'm getting too loud in your ear. I'm going to move back slightly from the microphone. And that's going to be difficult for me in the edit. But sure, fuck it. And anyway, listen. I've just made the podcast episode explicit by saying the F word. So, guys, I have noticed that just looking at people's Instagram stories, and a lot of people are sharing their top artists of the year and their top podcasts of the year. And some people are sharing my podcast, and that's very nice. Thank you, Charlie Monroe. And thank you, those conspiracy guys, for listening to me. And thank you to my lovely Cara for listening to me. I've made number 5 on her podcast list, which is surprising and also wonderful because she gets it for free. She gets to listen to me shite on 22 hours a day, because that's pretty much how much time we spend together. And, she doesn't really have to listen to the podcast at all. But she does. And I appreciate that. Now, it could be me sneaking away in the middle of the night while she's asleep, getting her work phone and turning on Spotify and pressing play on episode 1 of my podcast, turning the volume down, and then sneaking back into the room. No, that's not what's happening. I swear. But a lot of the podcasts that I've seen people are sharing are true crime podcasts, which is not something that I actually listen to that much. I tried listening to what was that first one? It was like S-Town or something. Like the first big podcast when I actually heard people talking about this new thing called podcasts. And I was what is it about living in pods? And people are talking about it on a radio documentary. They're like, no, it's not really a radio documentary, but it's kind of like a documentary, but it's not on the radio, it's on the internet. And then I tried listening to one of those podcasts, which is about, a crime happening. And it's kind of spread out over 12 to 20 episodes. And it was just too much. It was like everything was a tease. It was like you listen to an hour of an episode and it gets to the end and it's like, and then they found a folder with papers in his room. What was in the folder? Find out in the next episode of Murder Town, which I guess I think that's another podcast. Like every single podcast name has been done, and people have been jumping on the murder bandwagon, true crime bandwagon. Except nowadays they tend to be doing it more just kind of one and done, one episode. And for me, that makes more sense. Like if you want to watch a documentary about something, be it 90 minutes, be it an hour, just tell the story from beginning to end, succinctly and quickly. And I'm not saying that because I've got like so much to do and I have like so little time on my hands, because I don't. But I just don't like when things are dragged out, because it feels like I have wasted my time. And I do watch, and I have watched, and I don't know if I watched it because Cara wanted to watch it, or I was like, yeah, okay. I think it's because it was 6 episodes. And I'm talking about the Undoing. Now, I'm going to talk spoilers in a bit. I'll talk about it as much as I can without spoiling it, but I would say listen to my review, because I would urge you not to watch this show, so I can spoil away for you if you must. And the reason I would say not to watch it is because it's just very bad. It's like, I know a few people who've watched it who've enjoyed it, and they've said stuff like, it looks great. And that's always like sort of bottom barrel scraping compliment for something. Like, it's pretty difficult to shoot something and have it not look good, especially if you have a budget. I mean, they've shot entire feature films on iPhones and they look good because the quality on a camera phone is really, really quite good compared to how it was 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. So this, I mean, it looks good. Like I read one Guardian review. Well, actually, it wasn't a review. It was labeled opinion. And I was like, right. And it was like a really short little thing. Like I was barely sitting on the toilet before I'd finished this article. And that is a bad sign of an article, in that you've barely reached the end of the first act of your 3-act movement if you have very dramatic movements as I do in the toilet. And the article's finished. It was like really, really short. And not a review, it was an opinion. And the opinion was, The Undoing is the perfect pandemic viewing that we need right now. And I was thinking, what? How? Okay, I'm intrigued. And then it was like, yeah, the plot twists were terrible. The accents were off. It was very dull at times. And then it ended, disappointingly so, with very little twists. But why is it great? It's because it makes New York look so good. And to see people running around and jogging and hailing cabs and saying, hey, I'm walking here, in their wonderful New York accents, and licking each other's faces in that friendly New York way that they do. And maybe it's strange to feel nostalgia for the city that you live in. It's like, fuck off. You know, everything is twisted in this pandemic prism. It's all viewed through this pandemic world. Now more than ever, we need to binge watch shows that are set in cities that we live in but we can't go out in. I mean, I don't know. It's like these idiots on YouTube leaving comments saying, wake up, sheeple, I'm not taking a vaccine. And everyone seems to be investing in barge poles because they're all like, I won't touch that with a barge pole. A barge pole that I purchased on wish.com just the other day. I'm going to, in fact, if it comes near me, I'm going to push it away. Well, all I'm saying is, if you did buy a barge pole, I hope it's a 6-foot barge pole, because that's the recommended distance. You pandemic pansies. Come at me. You don't know where I live. I mean, like, and people saying, how come the seasonal flu isn't around, huh? How come there's less normal flu going around? It's like, well, it's because everything's closed and people are in their homes and people aren't mixing and they're not talking and coughing and licking their hands and rubbing it on the walls when they go visit people's houses, because they're not going to visit people's houses. It's not like the old days where you go around to Susan and Alan's and lick your hands and just rub it all over the walls and say, can I go in and sneeze in your toilet and on your sink and on your foodstuffs? And you go, yeah, and you walk into the kitchen and open the presses and sneeze in their bowls and sneeze all over their forks and spoons. And then they're having their porridge the next day, completely blissfully unaware that it's covered in the flu. You know, and just this, isn't it strange? Isn't it strange how I saw someone tweeting, well, I didn't see it. It was brought to my attention because I tend to stay off Twitter until some of my friends tell me about things that people are tweeting. But people are going, you know, it's like these kind of really massively uninformed / ignorant / dumb things that people say where they're going, isn't it funny how we needed a vaccine and now all of a sudden there's a vaccine? Like, that's essentially what they're saying. Like, isn't it weird how people weren't interested in restaurants, but now interest in restaurants has gone sky high? I'm like, yeah, because the lockdown's over and people are going to restaurants again. Isn't it funny how depression has skyrocketed? Isn't that funny? Coincidence? Question mark? No, you fucking idiots. Everyone's stressed out of their beans. I'm outside my bean. I don't know where my bean is. I put it down and I can't find it. Okay, guys, we're going to take a short commercial break and we're going to be back after these messages. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, break. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, break. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, break. There's a break in this podcast. There is a break in the podcast right here. in the podcast right here. They're selling things with some ads in your ears. With some ads in your ears. There is a break in the podcast right here. In this podcast right here. They're selling things. Use the skip button if you don't want to hear. If you don't want to hear. Anyway, listen. The Undoing. Don't watch it. It stars Hugh Grant. And I laughed when I walked past a billboard of it on a bus shelter because I forgot that they were doing those things. It was on the side of a bus stop / shelter. I don't know why I call it a bus shelter because it doesn't shelter buses. It shelters people from the rain while they're waiting for a bus. It should be called a people shelter. But anyway, be that as it may. There was Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman. And I don't think I'm pronouncing their names right. But they've been in a couple of TV shows and a couple of movies. Fair play to them. And now they're in this one. And I did notice that Hugh Grant in the poster on this human shelter, he looked a lot smoother than he does in the show. He's gotten quite wrinkly and old. I guess like what is he now? Pushing 60? He's in his 50s anyway, but he looks like, and I don't know if he smokes, if that's kind of, he's got that chamois creased skin. Like, you know, he looks like a couch in a psychiatrist's office that's come to life and is like bumbling and posh and English. And now he doesn't attempt an American accent. Thank fuck. Because I don't think he could do it. And Nicole Kidman, who kind of looks like she has a slight bit of the mumps. And I guess that is her, you know, that's the Botox. Because she looks very smooth. And she doesn't look too bad. She doesn't look as kind of, I don't want to say inhuman, because that's like a bit too cruel. She doesn't look, let's say, less of a human female than some people who have gotten Botox. I'm looking at you, Courtney Cox Arquette, or Courtney Cox, as you're probably now known because you're not married to David Arquette. Yes, I'm looking at you. What? You're looking back at me with an expression. Oh, you have an expression on your face? I'm sorry, I didn't realise. The Botox is kind of blocking that. Never understood that. I never understood why, if you are an actor and your job is to express emotion in, you know, from your face, and sometimes, you know, you have to do it very, very, it's very small because the camera picks up every little tick and every little movement. You don't have to express big. You express small and the camera accentuates it. But let's freeze my face and, you know, stop it from being able to express. And let's do that for 6 hours. So the premise of the show is rich people are accused of murder. Or basically, Nicole Kidman is married to Hugh Grant. And he's he's like a child cancer doctor. And she's a psychiatrist or psychologist. I can't remember. She's one of those. She's a shrink in New York City. And her father is Donald Sutherland, whose eyebrows should be given an Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actor on an actor's face in a limited TV series. I don't know if that's a category. It should be. Basically, this like sexy woman who's acting real sexy, and like Nicole Kidman kind of knows her. She's like just moved. Her son has been enrolled in this like exclusive school in New York, and I don't know, some kind of scholarship or whatever. And she comes in to meet all the other mums who are all sitting around in a circle. It's like, what are we going to do for the pageant this year or something, some kind of fundraiser. And she starts breastfeeding her child right in front of them all. And they're like, that's strange. Which is kind of like, I don't know why they're so perturbed by that. Because like they have kids, like presumably they just have the help breastfeeds them or something. The maid or the butler straps on a pair of fake breasts and puts their milk inside or something. Or, they express the milk from their breasts while they sleep. It's all part of the helps, it's on the helps remit. This isn't what I signed up for. Express my child's milk. The milk for my child, not my child's milk. Anyway, you're all fired. And Ed, you're fired too for just not kind of landing that bit. Well, this is what you do. Anyway, this sexy woman is murdered, brutally murdered. And she's like has her face smashed in with a hammer, and like that's the setup. Now, I'm going to spoil it all now. So basically, what happens is she gets her face smashed in, and then 2 cops come round. One of the cops is kind of sexy and Cuban, and the other cop is a sort of a doughy American man. And the sexy Cuban man starts talking to Nicole Kidman, and her husband, Hugh Grant, has like disappeared. He went to some conference in Cleveland or something, and he left his phone behind, and she can't contact him, and she like rings the hotel, and he's not in the hotel he said he was at. So then she goes round to, he's like incommunicado for like a couple of days, and she goes round to the hospital, and they're like, but he hasn't worked here for a year. So he lost his job, and he was like, it turns out he was having an affair with the woman who was murdered. He treated her son, and he was having an affair, and it turns out that the baby that she was breastfeeding is Hugh Grant's baby. So then he shows up at the end of the second episode at their kind of beach house, because they have a beach house because they're incredibly rich people, and their son is there. They've got like, he's like a 11 or 12-year-old child, Henry. So she calls the cops, and they arrive in helicopters. Like everyone's got a helicopter in this show as well. In the climax of the show, Nicole Kidman and her dad, Donald Sutherland, fly off in his helicopter, alongside the police helicopter. It's just weird. It's like, well, I'll take my chopper and we'll track down Hugh Grant. Because, spoiler alert, now if you're here already, then you know. What I didn't like about the show is that at the end of certain episodes, you kind of go, oh, maybe Nicole Kidman did it, because the cops bring her in, and then they show like CCTV footage of her walking the street the night that the woman was murdered, and then that's the end of like episode 3 or something. But then what happens is they can't find the murder weapon. And this woman who was murdered was an artist. She was murdered in her studio. And Hugh Grant, of course, he comes back. He admits he's having an affair with her. He went there that night to have sex with her. Or as he says, make love. And that's why his semen is inside her and all over the walls. They had a hell of a time. And then she was murdered with a sculpting hammer. And the sculpting hammer is missing. And then at the end of episode 5, the second last episode, the son he's like learning the violin, and Nicole Kidman opens up his violin case, and dun 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 dun, the sculpting hammer is there. So it turns out that Hugh Grant did it. Okay, that's the actual truth. He keeps saying, "I'm innocent of this. Gosh, I mean, I couldn't, do a murder. I'm a healer. Am I a cheater? Yes. A bad doctor? Sometimes. A murderer? I don't think so." And you sort of kind of believe him, but then it's like, who else is it? And you think it could be the husband of the woman, because he knows that she's been cheating. And he knows, like, because the baby daughter comes out and she, like, looks bumbling in English, foppish. And he's like, this is not my daughter. She looks like Hugh Grant. So the son, this is ridiculous. When Hugh Grant leaves, he murders her. Then he takes the murder weapon and he goes to their beach house by the sea. And, I mean, any person who's trying to, get away with murder, if you have the smoking gun, or in this case, the bloody sculpting hammer, and you're beside the sea, then you pretend you're in the Olympics, put it in your arms, spin around and fuck it into the ocean. Problem solved. Murder sort of gotten away with. Maybe. But it doesn't help your case. But no, he puts it in, like, they got this outside fire oven kind of thing, where I guess they sit outside and, light a fire and maybe make some pizzas or whatever. He hides it in there. And then the son finds it. And then what does the son do? I know, I'll bring this down to the ocean. I'll get as close as I can, or I'll throw it over a cliff and it'll go into the ocean. Problem solved. Daddy didn't go to jail. But no, he puts it in the dishwasher twice. And he says he does this to protect his father. If you really want to protect your dad, then get rid of the fucking hammer. I just can't fathom it. And then at one stage we were watching it, and there's a good, over the 6 episodes, there's probably maybe 15 to 20 minutes of Nicole Kidman just being distraught and like flouncing on a bed, opening wardrobes and pulling out clothes, or walking on the street being distraught. She faints at one point. And Cara was like, maybe Nicole Kidman did it. And I said, what? Like, if she did it, why would she be acting so distraught over the fact that her husband was having an affair and her head spinning, that he may be a murderer? And, like, she's being distraught to no one. There's no one there. So, like, who's she doing? Who's she putting on the act for? Us, the people watching the television show? She doesn't know she's in a television show. So in the end, it turns out that Hugh Grant is the murderer. And he drives the son Henry, and he's like, we got to do that cross-country trip we always dreamed of. Cross-country trip, road trip 2, that's you and me. Your pops, who is not a murderer, or maybe he is, because he's gone crazy. And he drives to a bridge, and then he tries to jump off the bridge. And in the end, Nicole Kidman runs up, her face full of emotion, presumably. I can't tell because it's frozen. And Hugh Grant gets down and he's like, gosh, sorry, I didn't want to worry you, gosh. And then they fly off in Donald Sutherland's helicopter. And that's another thing as well. Donald Sutherland has a couple of scenes where he's like, one scene where he goes to the principal of the fancy school that Henry is in, because this principal's like, there's a lot of negative attention here on the school because the, father of one of the students is accused of being a murderer. And he goes like, so, maybe Henry shouldn't come here. And Don Sutherland goes all ice cold 1% rich man on him. And like, I could pull my funding, given a lot of money to the school. He doesn't say pull it. He kind of vaguely threatens him in that kind of rich person way, where you just assume that they have like lots of power and influence. And then, that's my main gripe with the show. my main gripe with the show is that I don't care about rich people. It seems to be this kind of, ooh, look at their fancy house and look how rich people have problems as well. And it doesn't make it interesting that they're rich. Like True Detective, I haven't seen season 2. I've seen season 3. Season 3 I thought was very good. But season 1 of True Detective was very, very good because it was intelligent and it wasn't about just rich people in high society in New York City and this big glamorous case, this, whatever happens in the courtroom today, it's going to be high theatre. This is me, a New York reporter from the 1930s, reporting in 2020. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. It's 6 hours of my life that I can't get back. And that is the real crime, listeners, that my time has been wasted. Okay, guys, it's the end of the show. I'm just going to wrap up here. Now, you've probably forgotten what I said at the beginning of the show, which was me almost being scammed, but not quite. And I didn't give any details. I just kind of glossed over it. And I just went off on a tangent about various other things, including, bus shelters and mostly the Undoing and, people being wary of the vaccine and saying it's Satan's sperm in a syringe and don't put it in your bodies, sheeple. And the reason I didn't really go into too much detail about the scamming is because it's a little bit embarrassing, really, because I don't know, I think it was early. See, I'm already making excuses. It was early. I'm getting older. And it was a text. It was a text from AIB saying a payee wants to make a payment on your account. Click on this link. And I stupidly clicked on the link. I think sometimes you do these things almost kind of automatically. Like you don't really, it's like a kind of a muscle memory. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. It's like putting your hand on a hot plate and going, oh God, no, and taking your hand off. Now, these are all just excuses. It's me being stupid. And also, like the payee's name was Jackie, but it was spelled Jacky. And that's not even how you spell the name Jackie. And I clicked on it and then I was like, oh shit, no, wait. And then I checked my account to see if they'd stolen what little money I have. And they hadn't. And then I figured, well, maybe I should. And I rang AIB and I was like, maybe you should cancel my account. And they were like, well, let's see what's happening. Oh no, they're trying to buy things. And I said, oh, shut it down, pull the plug. So I had my card cancelled. So then I had to go into the AIB and get a new card. So now I don't have a credit card and I'm living on apples. So if you feel sorry for me and my stupid dumb brain, then you can become a patron of Edwin Salmon of Knowledge. Also, if you like what I do, if you like listening to my podcast, consider, sponsoring me. That's what it is. It's basically, it's the podcast equivalent of going door to door and saying, I'm doing a sponsored walk. Give me, how many lines do you want? So I'm like a child doing a sponsored walk for a charity and also selling cocaine. That's what the lines are about. No, so you can do that. I don't know. I might set up a buy me a coffee thing because I've done, 54 episodes and I have lots of bonus content on my Patreon account. Oh, my phone is ringing. Okay, so that was my dad on the phone. I was just talking to him. He was just ringing me very briefly to tell me that I am excused from jury service. I was talking about that in a previous podcast. I was got a summons. So I just got the letter a week before I'm supposed to go to Tullamore in County Offaly, which I was never going to do. I would have stayed here even if I wasn't excused. I would have fought the courts, fought the fine. I would have fought the law, and I would have won, unlike that song. So, guys, yeah, I am going to sign off now. Thank you so much for listening. If you've listened this far, you're extra special. If you fancy becoming a patron of Edwin Salmon of Knowledge, you can go to Patreon, look up Edwin Salmon of Knowledge, and there I am. And for a minimum of €3 a month, you can get, it's not even the price of a cup of coffee, you can get lots and lots of bonus material. I will be putting up another episode of Space Notes early on the Patreon. I was supposed to have it this week, but I just haven't had the time, guys. It takes a long time to edit Space Notes because of all the sound effects and amazing array of accents that I do, as you would agree. So that'll be going up, and also I will have a new series of podcast episodes designed to help you go to sleep. So that'll be coming up during the week. So guys, thank you very much, and I will see you soon. I always say I'll see you soon, but I never will, unless you want to send photographs to me. But don't do that. That sounds like I'm trying to solicit some images from you, and I don't want those, unless they're, heartwarming Christmas pictures. Anyway, talk to you soon. Bye. Salmon of knowledge, it's the 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 salmon of knowledge podcast.